Coming up, the impact of an EF5 tornado on aviation in Oklahoma. More about CBP agents interdicting innocent pilots. News from eBase on new jets and taking charge of your health to keep you flying. AOPA Live this week begins in just a moment. This is what an EF5 tornado looks like through the lens of storm chaser Paul Stowe. EF5, that's the top of the scale. Winds over 200 miles an hour. This is the tornado that struck Moore, Oklahoma this week. Hello everyone, I'm Tom Haynes and this is AOPA Live this week. This was one of the worst tornadoes ever to hit the United States. It tore a swath more than a mile wide and 17 miles long. Damage estimates are now over $2 billion. Moore is a suburb of Oklahoma City, and Moore's mayor said many FAA employees reside there. Sadly, Terry Long, a member of the Professional Aviation Safety Specialists Union, was among those killed by the tornado. The FAA put a TFR over Moore at first to keep the area quiet so rescuers could listen for survivors, and then to protect the airspace for rescue aircraft. Our initial reports are that no airports or nav aids were significantly damaged by the tornado. Meanwhile, General Aviation, including AOPA, stepped up to offer transportation for rescue teams, supplies, or whatever might be needed. At this time, Oklahoma officials say they don't need more stuff or people, but they do need money. If you want to help, you can donate to the Oklahoma Disaster Relief Fund. You can find it at okdisasterhelp.com. 100% of donated funds go to help the affected, including tree and debris removal, laundry services, and meals. Another donation option is the American Red Cross at redcross.org. Last week we told you about Gabriel Silverstein and his detention and aircraft search in Iowa City. Well, that prompted a lot of emails and phone calls to AOPA. Warren Morningstar joins us now live in the AOPA Media Center. So Warren, apparently these aircraft searches by Customs and Border Patrol agents are hardly isolated incidents.
That's right, Tom. We got a flood of responses to this story. AOPA members were incensed that they could be stopped, searched, their airplanes turned inside out for no good reason. And yes, it has happened to others.
A lot of comments and people's emotions and feelings about such searches, but we've also had, half a dozen or so members that wrote in and had very similar experiences as Mr. Silverstein.
Now, there are some commonalities to all of these interdictions. The pilots are never given a good explanation as to why they've been stopped and searched. Sometimes they're told they fit a profile, but the profile is very vague, like they were flying from west to east, or in the case of Mr. Silverstein, because he had stopped in Colorado where they had recently legalized marijuana.
From previous experience with these kind of things, it appears that it begins at the El Paso Intelligence Center, and then which also includes AMOC as well as the Drug Enforcement Agency.
AMOC is Customs and Border Patrol's Air and Marine Operations Unit, and the El Paso Intelligence Center, also known as EPIC, is host to a whole raft of agencies, including but not limited to the DEA, Homeland Security, the FBI, the IRS, the Department of Transportation, ATF, the Department of Defense, the State Department, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and even the Union Pacific Railroad Police. Meanwhile, CBP's Air and Marines Operations Center, which is based in Riverside, California, is charged with running air interdiction efforts for the entire Western Hemisphere. Now, they have access to about half of the FAA's radar sites at the moment, but they're trying to get even more. And they say they can track about 24,000 targets at a time, trying to determine which of those targets might be smuggling something or could be a terrorist threat. Now, CPB still won't answer our questions, but they did just give us a statement in which they say, in part, that they can't release information on any individuals encountered by air interdiction agents due to privacy and policy considerations. And CPB very nicely said that they regret any inconvenience that they might have caused pilots with their interdiction efforts. You can read the complete statement on AOPA.org. Tom?
So Warren, it sounds like they've been running up a big bill. How many of these CBP interdictions have there been? Do we have any idea?
Well, no, Tom, we don't. Now, there are media reports that at least some of these interdictions where local police operating under the direction of CBP agents have found drugs in general aviation aircraft. But what we don't know is how many interdictions there have been of innocent pilots versus those that have been arrested.
Well, some pilots think these so-called interdictions violate Fourth Amendment protection against unreasonable search and seizure. Warren?
Yes, that's something that the AOPA attorneys are digging into right now, but it really is not a simple answer. There are court cases, including a Supreme Court decision that dates all the way back to 1925, which says that police may search a vehicle with probable cause. That means they can search without a warrant if there is a reasonable suspicion. But what exactly is a reasonable suspicion? And the other question is whether or not an aircraft is a vehicle. That's going to take a lot of wading through the court cases and the laws before we can answer the question as to whether or not pilots should be treated differently than automobile drivers. Tom?
Well, thanks, Warren. We'll definitely stay on top of that one. Well, the guy who might ultimately have something to say about both drivers and pilots had his first grilling before the U.S. Senate Wednesday. Although, truth be told, it was pretty gentle. Anthony Fox went before the Senate Commerce and Transportation Committee. He's President Obama's nominee to be Secretary of Transportation. But did they ask him about user fees?
I would hope that you would find it within your approach to being the Secretary of Transportation where you'd find alternative solutions as opposed to having a user fee, which would, of course, be cumbersome and challenging in the aviation footprint.
Thank you. I will say that my approach to this role would be the very same approach that I have as mayor, which is I want to hear from all stakeholders on various questions that involve industry, and that doesn't always mean agreement.
Pretty safe bet he will agree with the guy who has a $100 user fee in his proposed budget. Same guy will be his boss if he's confirmed as Secretary of Transportation. And the president has another nominee who will be going before the committee soon. Michael Whitaker is in line to be FAA Deputy Administrator. He's a lawyer and has worked for both United and TWA. EAA got some bad news from the FAA. The agency is going to charge EAA for the controllers who work traffic arriving in Oshkosh for AirVenture. AOPA said that amounts to, once again, a user fee on general aviation and vowed to fight them. Honda has announced the first flight of the 5th conforming Honda jet, which marks the beginning of the end of the aircraft's testing phase. Honda jet designer and company president Mikamasa Fujino told me from the European Business Aviation Convention in Geneva this week that this flight was a big milestone and very emotional. How are you progressing on your preparations for being able to manufacture the airplane at a production rate, and what sort of rate will you be looking at for that first year of manufacturing?
Yeah, we continue to prepare for production as we planned. So we do not have any big change in plan, but also, as I said, I try to make the use of the time as much as possible. So we are focused on the process improvement, such as the line balance project, so that when we start production, production line should be very efficient from the beginning. And our goal is we try to ramp up as quickly as possible by preparing the optimum line project.
Certification is now planned for late 2014. The company has 100 jets on order already, and Fujino is optimistic that the light jet market will rebound. Also at eBase, Pilatus announced its new PC-24 twin. The airplane, which is still in the prototype stage, is set to roll out of the Pilatus factory in Switzerland in the third quarter of next year. Certification planned for early 2017. And if a medium-sized jet just won't do, there's always the Boeing business jet. The BBJ-3 was on display at eBase. With a cruise range of 4,900 nautical miles, it's built for comfort, to say the least. Boeing is showing off this unsold model with seating for 38 passengers and a crew of 8. Yours for a cool $100 million. Probably bulk discounts are available. Coming up after the break, another first for the Navy's unmanned combat air system. All the new stuff on the new AOPA website. And Dr. Sakier says it's time to act like a PIC. Welcome back to AOPA Live this week. The things robots can do nowadays. The Navy's X-47B unmanned combat air system did a series of touch and goes on the aircraft carrier George H.W. Bush last Friday. That follows its successful catapult launch from the week before. And last week we told you it landed in Virginia. Well, guess what? Naval Air Station Patuxent is in Maryland, and we of all people should know that. Always has been, always will be. Our apologies to the Navy and everybody else who lives in Maryland. And thanks to the many sharp-eared viewers who caught our error. Next time we'll look it up on AOPA FlyQ web. Well, fortunately, we did use AOPA FlyQ to navigate to Batavia, Ohio last Saturday for Sporty's annual fly-in. Lots of hot dogs, of course, although Sporty's cooks up hot dogs every Saturday for visiting pilots. But Sporty's also announced the winner of its sweepstakes airplane this year, a beautiful Legend Cub.
Because you are the Sporty's winner of a brand new Legend Cub. We have about 200 people here listening to you on the phone, and congratulations on winning the airplane. Well, I've been talking to your boss today. I think they called you in special today to work, and I don't think you're really supposed to be working today. One of the supervisors, Kathy or Fox Olson, set this up to get you at work so that we were able to contact you by phone today.
Oh, that's great. I don't have to work today, too.
So you got a day off and you got an airplane.
This is our 25th airplane. And the vision was, of course, what everybody, it was more orders. And also make it a lot of fun. Something else to make aviation, make flying fun. Keep flying fun, and if it's not fun, we're never going to increase the safety. It's got to be, the two go together.
Michael Wolf at Sporty's tells me that Christopher Boyle will be coming to pick up his airplane soon. Meanwhile, we've been teasing you about it for several weeks now, but next week it goes live, the new and improved AOPA.org. Paul Harrop takes us through the changes you can expect to see when you log in next week. We think you'll like it.
Hi, I'm Paul Harrop from AOPA Live, here to show you around the brand new AOPA.org. If you're like me, you use this website every day, and it is completely different, but don't worry. All the changes are for the better, and they start right here on the freshly designed homepage. We've got a story rotator front and center for you. The hottest topics and the latest feature stories from our magazine editors and writers are going to be right there. This is where the buzz each week at the FBO is going to come from, and you don't have to hunt for the hot stories. They're right there. Just below it, this is a very powerful tool for you. This blue bar is the flight planning toolbar. We start with weather, so you can check that. FlyQ Web, online flight planner. FlyQ EFB, so you can take the powerful tools with you on your mobile device. The AOPA Airport Directory and the TFR map. No excuse not to check it before you go. It's right there on the home page. As we look up across the top, there's a series of tabs starting with news and video. You tell us that's the most important thing that you come to the website for. And we have organized the articles by topic for you. You don't have to hunt for them any longer. They're organized by technique, technology, health, gear and products, and several other different categories. All our digital editions of our publications are right here, as well as the blogs and AOPA Live this week for you to check out. Looking on over, we have a flight planning tab. Again, the same tools that are there on the home page, but we've added in an international flying section. So if you're not used to flying to Alaska or the Bahamas or other places that are accessible by a GA aircraft, we've got a lot of information for you to be able to check out there before you take off. Also up here on the tab, the education tab is going to be important to you. That's where you'll find the online courses, the safety quizzes and safety videos that are produced by the Air Safety Institute. You can click on the tab and find all those resources right there, all in one spot. Over on the Community and Events tab, you'll be able to connect with us via social media and connect with your fellow pilots via the member forums. You can also stay in touch with the Center to Advance the Pilot Community and the initiatives that they have going on there. And on the Products and Services tab, you'll find everything that AOPA and our strategic partners offer you. You don't have to hunt for things individually. They're all right there. AOPA.org has been rebuilt from the ground up over the last few months to give you over 30,000 pages of information and everything you need to know about flying. You can find it all in one spot at AOPA.org.
Thanks, Paul. A lot of good stuff on the new site. Be sure to check it out. The AOPA Flying Clubs initiative is getting a helping hand. DTC DUOT is joining forces with AOPA as a supporting sponsor. DTC DUOT will provide financial support to the effort. The goal is to grow or expand the more than 600 flying clubs in the United States. As pilots, we're usually take charge kind of folks. captains of the ship, masters of our own fate and all that sort of thing. But surprisingly, many of us relinquish PIC roles when it comes to our health. Dr. Jonathan Sakier says it's time to take charge.
As GA enthusiasts, we might be tempted to taunt those friends who have to take their shoes off and undergo screening by TSA prior to travel. Nobody likes that experience, and anyway, they're screening the wrong people, we always proclaim. I'm not a terrorist, I'm not a threat to anyone. But what of other threats and other screening modalities? Everyone talks about our healthcare system, but truth be told, we have a disease care system. American doctors, nurses, and other professionals are standing at the ready to treat diseases that are already established. This is really a bit of a misalignment of incentives. You know, the story goes that in ancient times, doctors only got paid if the patient recovered and improved. Can you imagine that going down well today? Here at AOPA's Pilot Protection Services, we're motivated to bring you ideas on how you can firstly avoid problems and then, of course, if you do get into trouble, doing what can be done to help you out. Screening for disease risk is one such way, but let me first of all make a couple of sweeping statements. Number one, anything I say or you read about, discuss with your personal doctor who best knows your situation, life experiences and risks, and can best advise you. Secondly, please understand where national guidelines come from and what motivates them. These groups make population-based recommendations. What's best for 300 million people? Not one person, not you. Here's a good example. If I operated on someone for colon cancer, something I've done often, and that patient said, "Hey doc, what are my chances here?" What they do not want to hear is national statistics, such as you have a 60% chance of being alive at 5 years. That's nonsense. At 5 years, they will be either 100% alive or 100% dead. Kind of like the silliness of being somewhat pregnant. So if anyone gives you guff about getting screened for something you're concerned about, get informed, get motivated, and defend your rights to do the best for yourself and your loved ones. So here's some obvious ones. Have a proper physical every year by a doctor who's really motivated to do a thorough job. Darn it, you do it for your plane, why not yourself? Check your blood pressure at least twice a year. Have your blood lipids measured every 5 years at least. Get a colonoscopy. The guidelines say starting at age 50, but I like to tell people earlier, especially if there's a family history. Prostate cancer screening makes sense, as does bone density screening for women past menopause or men who have smoked and are of shorter stature. Cardiac disease screening is usually only done when symptoms develop, and it's too late. The electron beam CT scanners do a nice job showing the presence of calcium where there should be none in your coronary arteries. If it does show up, this might provide the impetus to change your lifestyle. Have your skin reviewed for skin cancers once a year, especially if, like most pilots, you spend a lot of time outdoors. You know, the naysayers will say that doing unnecessary screening leads to false positives and therefore additional, expensive, and potentially harmful tests. That's why I recommend empowering yourself with knowledge from AOPA and other resources and take ownership of your health. You cannot tell the TSA whether or not to screen you, but this is something you can control.
Thanks, Jonathan. That's it for this week. Have a great and safe flying time this Memorial Day weekend. We'll see you next Thursday for AOPA Live This Week.